here. Backrooms was one of those films that scared the shit out of me. It made me feel like I was a little kid dreaming about getting chased by a monster that I couldn't even escape from. And the whole premise of the film talks about therapy in a sense where you can go towards a world that is seen as endless, but there's something lurking behind it that is terrifying, utterly terrifying about it. And my first experience with Backrooms was just seeing the 4chan posts and everyone posting it as creepy pastas online and theories and stuff. But it was just like a phase or a craze of the internet at the time period of liminal spaces and everything with that regarding. I'm like, dude, it's just nostalgic just looking at like some like childhood pictures and everything, how that's put together, and just the world behind it, and then the possibilities of shared memories and all sorts of that's what was cool about the idea. But for them to make a movie about this, was I was looking forward to seeing the world building and how they're gonna like imply all those theories into this one film. And it was very interesting seeing it. It took a different take. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people said it was trash or it was terrible. But I truly believe that the film wasn't trying to be some slot fest or something that was super catchy. It was trying to tell a message. Like it led more to interpretation towards the audience and what they believed and what they can think of and what they took out of the film. Like Kane Pixels, when he made that Backrooms footage off of Blender, a while back ago, when that was one of his first films for school, you know, there was no backstory to it or anything like that. Just some guy drops into this world that you never heard before, and it's a mystery, and then you're just trying to like collectively find yourself yeah, just putting together the pieces. When I first saw that footage, just resurfacing it and just looking at it again, it was kind of spooky. I ain't gonna lie. Like just it captured that film, and the recent Backrooms film really captures that sense of like you're walking around something that's just unnatural and unsettling, but also at the same time something is watching you. And every single time like he turned that corner, and in that little short film he did, there's something right there watching him. And eventually, of course, you should try to get away and run and try to avoid this monster. Is like it ends up finding you, capturing, just it shit was crazy. It really felt like a bad dream. I remember, as a kid, when you had like bad dreams, it felt like you could never get away from that problem and monsters and stuff like that. That's like I say an internal issue that one of the films that kind of resonated with, where no matter how far you're trying to run away from the issue, you have to, face it head on at that point, best way you can, because it was a really good metaphor. But yeah, this film isn't trash at all. I don't know what people are talking about. This film was different, and it has a newcomer and someone that wasn't really, you know, heavily involved in the community and stuff like that. Just watching the film was, spoke out to me. It was different. I first talked about therapy with the main character, and him just regarding himself and just trying to find a new passion, and just as an architect and just trying to rebuild himself, while also the film also follows the second protagonist, the therapist, and where she's trying to recollectively get herself together as well. And it follows just these two characters really well, and I like just the subtleties of when they go inside the back rooms, that the back rooms kind of mirrors what they're going through internally and mentally, because as said from various other channels and theories, when you go into the back rooms, it's like an MRI where it kind of scans your brain, and whatever you're dealing with is just going to show up in really disillusioned spots of the back room. So the further you go down in it, the more it's going to like show up as like this like crafted weird type of subsurface texture or whatever. So I think they were in level 1. I'm not too whatever. Level 1 is all them bitches are scary. I ain't gonna lie, all of them are terrifying. I would not. The only good, I'll say, level to be as a pool room, because that's like the safest one. But all the levels were terrifying. But yeah, just seeing the character, the main protagonist, the guy, the architect, he was slowly going to madness, and he wasn't a likable character at all. He was more of a, no, this is how I feel, I'm gonna stand by it until the very end, when it was too late, unfortunately, without getting into any spoilers, of course. But yeah, I just like where his character and where his mindset was going, and how lost he was getting. Of course, When I first saw that scene when he got into the back rooms, I was like, oh shit! Like he wasn't terrified or anything. He was just walking around and just trying to figure out this spot. Like this is like a new uh, surface in his life, a new area to explore in his life, and he was really excited, but also very curious at the same time. But you know, everyone else that kind of went into the back rooms were terrified because of the unknown, but he was accepting like this as his new reality. But you know, this film didn't. The interesting thing about this film, it didn't show his descent into madness. It's it was more subtle, and that's what I like about films. That's why when people will be trying to bash it, it's like, no, it's not bad, bro. It's a bigger picture behind it. It's like he was going crazy, and I remember when I saw the scene when he brought back those two assistants, and you know they were like, "Oh, why are you taking us here?" And they're like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And then you know they just kept going around in the back rooms. He had everything mapped out and everything put together in a certain point, and you know he wasn't really talking as much. He wasn't like himself. Like it was a big shift from the first part of the movie when he was just trying to get his thoughts out, because he was like, you know, he was not too expressive where it's goofy, but it was just like he lets you know what was up. But this time he was more quiet and more deliberate. Like, nah, I'm a, you know, there's a reason why I'm here, but I'm not going to tell you guys. And then, you know, the further it went down in the back rooms, the more, you know, unsure those assistants were getting until they got to that point where they fell down into a little ditch hole and that monster got them. I was like, yeah, there was a big shift within that character. Yeah, but there was a big ass shift between that character, and I just knew something was up on like the first time we saw him again. I was like, okay, something was weird. Then they all went down the little rabbit hole of like trying to figure out like, oh, what was happening? What took the guy? It was like it was panicking and shit, and I was like, ah, shit. And that's like the worst. Me personally, what scared me the most about that film again is when the moment you go down to the back rooms, you don't have time to explore. There is something already after you and chasing you down, and to the point where it's like it's it's like you're running away from something and you really can't understand the situation. It's like a certain type of fear where you have to move. You can't really sit down, analyze the situation. You just gotta keep going. And so yeah, when they all fell down a little ditch hole, it was just that scene was really that scene got me, because usually horror movies don't scare me like that, but you know, we got a YouTuber, you know, from technically from the creepy pastas. You know, when they do that stuff from, you know, the internet horror, it's more different. It's more versatile. It's more something of it's unsettling, and they capture that moment perfectly. Like, because movies, especially for a long time, you know, like Annabelle and all those little same slasher films, it's not really scary, but this one was more of a unsettling thing. Like you don't really see what happens to the characters, but it just implies it, and it really leaves a big suspense out of the viewer that's watching it, and it left a big suspense out of me. Like I was just on the edge of my seat just watching that shit, because it was just trying to run away from this monster. You didn't know how fast it was moving, how big it was. It just knew it. You just saw it. Just took one of the characters that were was involved. So the guy had to keep going, but it makes a big cut towards the end, and it goes back to the therapist, and you know the therapist kind of goes back into the back rooms, and you meet the main protagonist again, but this time it was different, and this time I knew something was wrong. You know, I didn't really expect that film to scare the shit out of me like it did. Like you know, I ain't gonna lie, these past couple nights was troublesome to sleep. This shit was hard as hell sleeping. I'm like thinking like, fuck, I might get transported to this damn world. Like, the fuck is that? You fall down, you just chilling, and you just fall down somewhere, and then boom. But it's crazy how, you know, the resurgence of these films really kind of captivated, you know, audiences, and it really stirred up like this big message across, like, you know, any small creator can, you know, make it. And I think that's quite powerful, because you know YouTube creators is you know, it's a big resurgence when it comes to that, and this film definitely deserves the attention it's getting, and I think it's peak in every way, because it's not a bad film at all. It just has a lot of moments where, yes, to some people it's slow, but to me it's character building, and I'm very used to that. Just seeing that there's a lot of moments where it's just like, oh, why they show that? Why is this going on for a long time? But no, if you actually pay attention, they tell a lot more about what the characters are going, and the story, and everything, how it's approached. and I personally think it's, you know, it's a really bold and smart move to do. And I know that people wanted them to have a big explanation, like a big theory behind it. Like this film would be like, okay, like people go into the back rooms, people are somehow lost in there, and then you know the big reveal is that it's like a government, like say Soviet government experiment where they send people into the back rooms and try to figure out how exactly it works and how everything is run, and can they take advantage of it and have more lore about it. Like the backroom's been around since the beginning of time, and you know people, but the government has been keeping it under wraps. And you know, if anyone kind of finds it, you know they're going to be silenced. You know, like that type of conspiracy theory. They could have went towards that, which would have been cool. You know, it would have been interesting, but you know, it just left for interpretation, especially at the last part of the scene. Like you know, when the therapist was stuck, you know, she'd never made it out, and it just shows like a lot of interpretations for the audience to kind of bring together, because ultimately it was a community that put together this film through the many pictures and the many theories of the back rooms and how everything was put together. So this film was, you know, put together by people that really cared about how far they are willing to take a story and how well it's going to be received. And a lot of care and detail was put into this film. And I'm really happy to see that this guy made it and he's telling his story the way he wanted to. Because I'm pretty sure they would have had a whole bunch of other craziness if, you know, by studios, if there was a studio interfered. You already know how that, you know, already know how studios get down. But I want to make this video real brief and real short. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. What did you guys think about both Obsession and Backrooms? Good movies for the summer. Let me know in the comments. Thank you and goodbye.